Okay, good morning. There's not a lot of people in class yet. It's actually not supposed to start for a couple more minutes, but just let you know that it's probably working if you can hear me. At least we've got that part going as it is. I'm going to wait until at least 7:05 again and see how many people show up. But we have a little bit of challenge in that when I rescheduled the meetings before, apparently it ended up saying we were going to be starting at 7:37 instead of 7. So I switched that over this morning, but some people may not be showing up until a little bit later. So hang out again. Today will be significantly, I hope anyway, will be significantly better attended than the last one, and we'll get into it. If you have any questions, of course, I am here. It's not like you can't talk to me ahead of time, but I'm not going to start anything officially for class until the actual time for class to go, okay? So far, the only thing I've found really cool about having these meetings this way, well, I guess not that being dressed extremely comfortably is one thing, but the other is I can have a big old glass of iced tea right next to me, which I can't usually do in the classroom. So I hope you're enjoying that as well, sitting at home. It's one of the few benefits that we get. My computer's complaining to me. Oh, it's having trouble with it. Okay. Okay, the meeting is starting to populate. Those of you that are sitting there wondering why everything's so quiet, give us a few minutes for some more people to show up, and then I'll yell at them for coming late to class, quote unquote, and then we'll get started.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, it just hit me. I wonder how weird that's going to be. I just giggled at something that was a pop-up on my computer, and you all have absolutely no context for why I just giggled at you. Weird. I'm not going to explain it because it doesn't really matter to you, but it just hit me as really odd. Your professor sitting here quietly and then suddenly just giggles for no reason. Although I do that too. I sometimes just think funny thoughts. Where'd I get that from? Oh, from Arthur, the movie Arthur. Sometimes I just think funny thoughts and I laugh. We're about halfway populated at this point. And I really don't like the way this comes up in the view. So let me try a different one. Let's try the gallery. Oh, that's much better. I can see a lot of you at once that way. I heard a little mumbling there. If somebody was trying to speak to the class or to me, you're gonna have to crank up your volume some. If it was just you talking to your cat, that's cool. You don't need to change anything. I try talking to my snakes. They don't talk back and they don't rub up against me or anything. So it's not quite as much fun. We're still populating the class here. I don't know how many of you noticed it, but when I redid the class meetings from the mistake last week, I didn't notice that since it was already after 7 o'clock when I redid all the meetings, rather than putting the start time at 7 o'clock, which is what I entered, it put the start time as what it was because it was already after 7. So you can't open a meeting before the time that it is. So it put them all starting at 7:37 there. So some people may be showing up a little bit late. There was probably 10, 12 people that checked last night, or at least were online last night. Hopefully they checked it. So they may be showing up a little bit late anyway. We're not going to be here for the whole 3 hours. So I'm going to be altering a little bit things back and forth here for today once I've decided that lecturing to little boxes was not going to be conducive to the type of discussion that I like. So we're going to do some alterations for that. We're going to move. It's not going to be totally asynchronous, but it's going to be a modification or a combination of some synchronous, some asynchronous for the class. It's going to make it a little bit easier for you, but that's going to make it make some of the responsibility a little larger for you as well. Where I'll be adapting for this as we go through, okay? So I'm gonna hang a little bit longer before I really start anything big business-wise here until hopefully some more people show up, although there's plenty of people here for the class to make. There's no worry for that. Sometimes we worry about, oh my God, are enough students showing up? There's plenty of students in the class. Even if nobody else shows up, we're good, okay? So don't worry about it. I'm here. Like I said, if you have other questions about something, there's a couple of things on the chat already there. I may be looking back and forth to that. That's not going to be a big thing for me. It's real difficult for me to talk and type at the same time. I don't even touch type. I took typing a billion years ago in high school, but then once they invited me to leave high school, that skill fell by the wayside fairly quickly. So I never learned how to touch type. I sight type. I have to look at the keyboard whenever I'm typing. So it's a little difficult to look at you and talk to you and see what I'm typing at the same time. Sometimes fun when I'm typing a paper. I'm looking at what I'm doing, blah, 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 and something like this, the caps lock will get on by accident. My finger goes too far over or something. And I look back up at the screen and I have to retype an entire paragraph because I screwed something up and typed right that way, the same way for it. But better than the old days, back when we had to do regular mechanical typewriters with no correction. If you made a mistake on a page back then, you had to retype the whole page. And if it was a big change, you had to retype everything from that point on in the paper. Every page after it was affected. So your technology is helping you significantly. I'm very jealous of some of the things that are available to you. We're a little over half populated at this point, so we'll hang for a little bit longer. There are 40 students, the actual capacity of that class enrolled. So hopefully a few more people time changing. Oh, hey, there's another page here. Look at that. That's even worse for trying to lecture. I can't even see all of you at once. How screwed up is that? Okay, well, I'm glad I made some of those decisions because didn't realize that you wouldn't all fit on the same screen with me here. Only about half the class shows at once. And the little arrow doesn't show until you put the cursor in the middle of the Zoom screen to know that there's another page over there. So we may actually be all the way up to population here, because instead of 5 across, it's 10 across. Yeah, we're populated. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Let me click through and request people to unmute that weren't earlier. So hopefully we can get everybody in here. And we'll see how many people are making too much noise. Can't really see a hand that well with what's going on here. Okay. Alrighty, didn't see quite a few of you last week, and that was not your fault. That was me screwing some things up as I'm getting into the system a little bit better here. I'm Dave. You can call me Dave. You can call me Mr. Gewin. You can call me Professor Gewin. Hell, you can call me asshole. I don't care what you call me. Okay? Oh, somebody's got a big old noise. In any event.
That was me, my bad.
In any event, if some of you missed it earlier, while I didn't know you were here because of page 2 that I didn't know was there, I'm going to be switching things over a little bit. We are going to cover some things this morning, but we're not going to be sitting here for 3 hours staring at each other on this screen, especially since I can't even see all of you at once. That makes discussion a little bit difficult. I am very much a discussion type professor. I talk to the class and I expect the class to talk back to me. But if I can't see all of your eyes effectively, I can't tell when people are thinking hard or if they're a little confused, those kinds of things. So it makes discussion a little bit more difficult here. So that's the main switch from mostly synchronous to mostly asynchronous on here. Like I said, that will make it a little bit easier for you. But we have some business that we have to take care of, and that is, of course, the syllabus. If you have not already gone to the home page or to the file page and gotten a copy of the syllabus, you should do so, or make sure that you have it available to you. Normally, I would pass them out to you. Of course, those of you that have been in college before know this drill. some of you that this is your first experience to college. Things will change significantly in the next couple of semesters. Normally, I would pass a copy of this out to you and we would read it all together, having a wonderful time while you check to see if I'm reading it correctly. So I'm going to go over it here to make sure that there are no questions or to answer any questions that you have. Then we'll move down to some of the things that another tool that I have for you available to cover for some of this lost lecture time. Then we're going to move on to your first assignment, because you have a speech that's due for next week. Don't let that frighten you horribly at this point, although we haven't done any speaking about communication apprehension, the fear of public speaking. The official label of that is communication apprehension. We'll cover a little bit about it in here. The link that I've put up for you, it will take you off to another thing, but we'll cover the assignment and how it's going to be turned in, and the outlines. You're going to be learning a new kind of outlining for here. Some of you have made outlines before. I probably will give you a 99% guarantee that you've never made a full sentence or preparation outline. So we'll be learning how to do that. Big difference between it, just since I've thrown it out there for you. The outlines that you've done up to this point have been for you. They're to remind you of things. It's very similar to your speaking notes opposed to a manuscript. The outline you're going to be doing in here is for me. It's for somebody who has no idea what's in your brain, and I have to have it done a different way so the independent mind can understand it. So we're going to learn some new rules about full sentence of preparation outlining as we get to the end. Then I'm pretty much going to let you go at that point, although I will hang here for questions, discussions, check to see if something else isn't working right, although I think I've got it all figured out now. The reason why the documents weren't available last week is I have to publish it 2 different places rather than just one. So I thought I had them all published well, and I still had to find a different place. I had to publish the module as well as publishing the document itself. I was just publishing the documents. So hopefully that's all fixed as we go through there, okay? It's going to be a little weird here. I'm not going to go through the whole, here's my big life story and thing. You'll hear lots and lots of things about me, but I'm not going to go quite through that much stuff because part of the way I do a discussion is I can skip over things or elucidate, expand on things based on what the audience, how they're responding to me. As I said, your responses are much more muted here as far as my visuals are concerned, because you're just this big to me rather than seeing the entire face in front of you. And as I have alluded to or told you before, I also can't see all of you at once. I can only see about half of the class at one time on the screen here. So it's going to be a little bit weird. But if you have a question somewhere along the way, I would prefer you get, you chime in and get my attention, and we stop what I'm doing and we get your question asked and answered. Okay, one of the things that you should have been exposed to before is that if you have a question in your mind, if you're thinking a certain question, statistically with 40 people in this class, at least 2 to 3 other people in the class have exactly the same question in their head, but they either haven't formulated it completely or they haven't got up the chutzpah, the courage, if you will, to ask the question yet. So don't sit there going, oh, geez, okay, I'll wait and I'll ask them after everybody else is gone because I don't want anybody else to know I'm stupid, okay? That's not what's happening in your head. Your head's going to do lots of that kind of stuff, and hopefully I'll get part of that clear for you as we move through the class here. But if you have a question, get my attention, and we'll stop and we'll go through the question as much as we can. Unless I'm going to be covering it later, then I'll say, okay, hang on, and we'll get to it, okay? My lectures. You're not going to have a whole lot of lecture in this the way it's set up, because it doesn't work for a real discussion, and that's what I am, a discussion. So many things are going to be switching around here. My lectures, I don't lecture an outline of the textbook to you. You have the ability to pick up a free textbook just by jumping on and searching the Art of Public Speaking PDF. You should be able to get a free copy online, so there's no reason why you don't already have the textbook and haven't already started reading by this point. But that reading is going to become more important to you because the lectures are going to be limited. That also means that I'm going to limit my testing and my requirements to what's in the textbook, because normally my lectures don't just cover the textbook. I hated having that done when I was a student, and you should hate it as well. I was a serious student. I was a reentry student. I didn't go straight through school. I'm not normal, okay? I didn't go straight through school like most of the professors. I didn't finish high school and go get my bachelor's and go get my master's and come into college all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. As I said earlier to some of you, I don't have a high school diploma. In my high school, they invited me to leave in my junior year. They thought it would be a better idea if I just didn't come to class anymore and stop bothering everybody there. So I went off to continuation school for a while. And then I noticed something really scary in my life. The reasons for that was drugs and alcohol back at the time. I'm clean. Okay, don't worry about me now. Some of you are going, oh my God, I'm clean now. But at the time, it was caused by drugs and alcohol. And I noticed something really strange. I noticed that my friends, all of my peers around me, they were starting to die and or go to jail. So I thought, this isn't I'm an amazingly intelligent person, okay? And I was intelligent then as well. I figured out fairly quickly, I didn't want to die or go to jail. So I ended up wanting to join the service, because that was the only option for me as a high school dropout back then in the early 70s. So at the time, Vietnam was still going on. So that was kind of scary, but the service was still the only thing that I had available. So I went down and started talking to recruiters. The Army and the Marines would take me without a high school diploma. I was 17 at the time. I said I was a junior in high school. So I was 17 at the time. And the Army and the Marines would take me as a 17-year-old without a high school diploma. But I didn't want to join them because I figured out from the news that the Army and the Marines actually go out and try to find the bad guys and shoot them. And of course, by the same token, the bad guys would shoot back. So most of the people having troubles were from the Army and the Marines. So I went, I don't want that. I'm coming here because I don't want to die. It's kind of silly to go to a different country and die. I could stay here where I had more friends. So the Navy was a possibility, but I didn't want to be stuck on a ship. I like my freedom. So that left me with the Air Force. But the only thing about the Air Force, well, one of the reasons that the Air Force sounded so good to me is, remember I talked about that the Army and the Marines went out there to find the bad guys? Well, the Air Force has these multi-million-dollar aircraft, and they don't keep them where the bad guys are. They keep them far, far away from the bad guys because they don't want anybody shooting up or blowing up their multi-million-dollar aircraft. They, most of the time, actually keep them in a different country from where the bad guys are. So I thought that's a good idea. If you're going to be in the service, let's go somewhere where you're, other country away from bad guys. But I needed a high school diploma for the Air Force, and so I went down and got a GED. So I do have a GED, but I don't have a high school diploma. I have a master's degree in communication theory and process, but I don't have a high school diploma. So some of your experience, anyway. So I was a reentry student when I came back. I'm a little bit different than what some of you are dealing with. I lost part of the thought there, and that's what happens when people don't react the way I need to. Okay, so anyway, my lectures are designed, basically, I hated having somebody lecture, because I read the book. I don't need somebody telling me what I read last night. I know what I read last night, so I didn't need that. My lectures are designed to show differences between what it says in the textbook and what I learned in the real world. The textbook says something, and I have great respect for Stephen, for Mr. Lucas, but he is one of those people that went straight through academia. He's never been in the real world, and if you think school is the real world, you're going to have a rude awakening when you finally get out of here. School is not the real world. So some things are different. Some things that it says in the book, this is what we want done. I'll show you some differences about the way it is in the real world, and you can measure back and forth between those things. The one that's going to affect you the most is I usually go a little bit beyond what is in the textbook. My degrees are all in communication, but my paradigmatic view of reality, my frame of reference, if you will, is that of a structural psychologist. I view the world from the vision of a structural psychologist. So I don't want you to just do what you're told because it says that's what you're supposed to do in the book. My goal is for you to understand why you should be doing what you're doing. That way you can adapt it to other things in the world. This is really cool. I have my hands down below here doing visual aids, and it doesn't show it all on the screen. I hate Zoom. Anyway, let me stand back here. Yay. Oh, hey, I didn't even realize that. You can see my lasers in the background. All right. So I like to go beyond so you can understand. The link that I've put up for you, or I will have up for you, will help you explain that or help you understand that a little bit more. But I can't do a whole lot of that because we can't do a whole lot of discussion in here. And going beyond the textbook requires that we discuss back and forth so we can do some perception checking, we can answer questions, we can talk about it before it gets in. So that's going to be gone. It's mostly going to be straight from the textbook on here. So you have to read the textbook. You can't sit here and just wait for me to tell you everything you need to know, because that's not going to work. Okay. Even when we're in the main classroom together, it doesn't work. Let me see. The bottom line here is you're going to be tested on things that I never talk about. There are going to be things on the midterm and things on the final that I never said a word about because I think it's easily understood from the text. Does that mean you're going to understand everything? No. Okay, I'll still be here to answer questions, to explain things. I'll be available through email the entire rest of the week as we're going 24/7, although I'm not the fastest in response. I do check my email at least twice a day, usually a little bit more than that. And when we have an assignment due, it's significantly more than that. But you won't get everything, okay? You're going to have to read the textbook. You're going to have to study it. You don't have to do the last 2 chapters. I'm never going to talk about. I think both of those last 2 chapters require an entire semester by themselves. Just showing it to you in a chapter is a waste. You don't have any focus for it. So don't worry about those 2. But as far as the rest of it's concerned, you're going to have to read the textbook. You're going to have to time yourself or schedule yourself for the textbook. The midterm, it's on the syllabus. When we get through there, or when you read down to it, it'll tell you what day the midterm is going to be. You have to be through chapter 10 by then. You're going to be tested on chapters 1 through 10. So look at how many weeks are there between now and then, and make sure you have studied or time yourself, schedule yourself so you have everything studied by then. Just a quick warning. Some of you have had fair success and sometimes good success on cramming before a test. Let me tell you, the science is very clear. Cramming does not work. When you study, there's a concept called primacy and recency. Primacy means first, recency means last or most recent on there. you remember when you study, you remember about the first 15 or 20 minutes of that study and the last 15 or 20 minutes of that study time. Everything else in between there is lost, or at least is not effectively learned in there. All you get is you get about a half hour of effective learning when you study. And so if you have a 4-hour study session, you done wasted 3.5 hours. And you wake up in the morning, take the exam and go, oh my God, how come I can't remember anything? I'm so stupid. That's the way the brain works. We understand that stuff. So rather than doing big blocks of things on the weekend or Wednesdays you have off or whatever, schedule yourself at least 30 minutes to an hour every day. You should be spending, at this level of study, you should be spending approximately 2 hours outside of class for every hour spent inside of class. Now, those 2 hours include reading, studying, taking practice quizzes, researching, writing, rewriting, practicing. Okay, it doesn't mean you have to sit there for 8 hours in your textbook. It's about 8 hours of experiencing the class time outside for every, or 2 hours outside for every hour inside. So you need to spread that out or you waste a lot of your own study time. Some of you have probably, matter of fact, most of you have probably experienced that, where you get to the exam and you read the question on the exam and you read and go, oh my God, I knew this last night. I recognize that question, but you can't think of the answer. One of the reasons is because people try to study in too big of blocks of time. The brain can't organize 3 hours of information at once. That's why you take notes, so you can go back through it, okay? That's another strange thing that happens, that I've noticed happens in the Zoom. There's very little in the way of note-taking going on, and you have to force yourself to take some notes on here. You can't remember an hour's worth of lecture. Your brain's not capable of that. Okay, so you have to take notes to remind yourself what I talked about or what was covered as we go through. And this screen in front of you is an amazing draw to your eye. It's very, very easy to keep staring here than to look down to your paper and look back up to your paper, look back up, because we've been trained to stare at the TV screen, to stare at the video screen, to stare at the movie screen. We've been conditioned to do that. And these flashing lights in front of you also cause your brain to pay more attention to what's visual than to what's oral. So you have to read the book. Well, no, not read. You have to study the book. I'm not going to deal with that today. You're going to get too much from me already today. But there's a significant difference between reading and studying. Reading is not studying. Yeah.
Professor, this is Jesus. I was looking over the syllabus last night, and I actually bought a textbook, and I got a 12th edition. And I was looking for reference for chapters. I saw the subject matter, so if you know, maybe at the end of today's lecture, if you could have a reference for what we covered today, what chapters. I don't know.
Yeah, you're going to have to take a little more responsibility for that. Same thing. That's not strange for these new Zooms. This is the way I do it in normal class. You have to do actually 2 different kinds of reading. You have to look at the concepts that's going to be covered in that week, and then go to the index and look that stuff up. If it says we're going to be talking about introductions and conclusions, you have to go to the index and look up introductions and conclusions. I don't want you just doing what I tell you to do, okay? The second kind of reading you have to do is sequential reading. Since I do not cover everything that's in the book, you have to go chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and read everything or study everything in the textbook. If I put up the chapter list or whatever, that's the only thing you would be looking at. And that's not the way that the lecture works. It's not the way the class goes. This is not, this is a performance focused class that we're going to have to shift around or adapt to this new environment.
Yeah. I've been taking science classes for the last year, and it's all expository. So it's all from the book, and it's none, it's very little with concept and independent researching. But that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm a returning student, so I'm a returning student, and I have a bachelor. So I did liberal arts. So this is kind of my background.
Yeah. If you look at the difference, that's what I was going to say. If you look at the difference, what's happening there is your brain wants to be a scientist. That's what we try to teach you to be in school, to be a scientist. The scientific method is integral, but this is an art. Speech is an art. The things that you talked about there, chemistry, geometry, math, those are all original sciences. Speech, language arts, writing, those are all original arts. So they are handled a little bit differently here. And that's why I say, I don't want you to just do what I tell you. I want you to formulate and understand everything that's in the textbook. And that means you have to know what's there, not just read what I say. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I think that's the question I had from last night, but you clarified. Now, you're telling us what to do.
Yeah,
but
I'm also a reentry student, a really late reentry student. So,
I just a question on what you mentioned. You were a structural psychologist.
Structural psychology. My paradigmatic view of reality is from the focus of a structural psychologist. I look at communication from where it happens from our psyche and what the structures or the components of our psyche and our brain, not just our psyche, but our actual brain, why that makes us do the things we do in public speaking.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so
I am a little bit familiar with Strauss, the French psychologist, or was he an anthropologist? I'm not because you mentioned structural. Is that Strauss the anthropologist, or was he a psychologist?
I don't know right offhand. It's not somebody that I'm that familiar with on hand here. Part of that is because I've been teaching this, not that it's damned, but this damnable public speaking course for 25 years here, which begins to focus your knowledge tighter and tighter and tighter. The difference between a master's and a PhD. The master's, it's called a master's because you should theoretically understand the entire field. You have mastered the field on there. And a PhD means you are starting to focus to contribute to that field. The longer you stay in an area, the tighter and tighter and tighter your focus becomes. And once you get old like me, where you're not really even writing research anymore, it becomes so tightly focused that it becomes challenging to make the links to the rest of the world. Okay. Psychology is easy to understand. Structural means what are the physical structures in the brain and what are the psychic structures, the rules and laws that we deal with that make things happen.
Did you have you familiar with phenomenology? Phenomena by
I will tell you that it rang a bell, but I would not be able to discuss it with you without sitting down and opening a couple more textbooks and getting all that stuff refreshed.
Okay. All right.
Same thing once again. We talked a little bit about the tests. One of the reasons why sometimes you forget what you studied the night before is because your brain has become so focused that it no longer remembers the things that were around it. You remember chapter 4, but since you didn't read chapter 4 last night, your brain doesn't remember chapter 3 or chapter 5, which you read before and after that. So we'll get through that stuff as we go through, okay?
Okay, Professor. Thank you, Professor.
You bet. Okay. So that's basically what my lectures were about, showing differences, extending the knowledge that's going on there. And the last was preparing you for the next assignment that's coming up, the next speech, basically. So we're going to be losing some of the extension of it. So I'm going to limit the testing and my grading to what is covered in the textbook. What little lecture I do get on there, of course, we'll continue on there, but we'll continue to test on. But most of that's not going to be involved in it anymore. So conceptual reading, go by what's being covered the next, and that means you read it beforehand. We'll cover that in the syllabus in a minute. You read it beforehand. Don't wait to read it afterwards. Students, especially fresh high school students or people just coming back to college, want to listen to the lecture and then go read it because they think it will help them understand better. It's not. It works the other way around. The reading gives you the context to understand the lecture, and it also sets up categories or folders in your brain where to put the information in the lecture. If you do it the other way around, the lecture goes into a huge file called public speaking lectures rather than into the context that it needs to be, which is fear of public speaking or communication apprehension. It's just all under one big folder called public speaking class, something like that, okay? So you read beforehand, not afterwards. That means you have to go through the syllabus fairly regularly, okay? So I'm going to turn my paper over here and read through the syllabus. So we have the things exposed to you here as we get, okay? Okay, where am I? Oh, glasses will help here, Dave. Yes, you're old. Forget it. Okay, my name's on top there. This is Public Speaking 101. The time is wrong there because I thought it was 7:15 instead of 7:05, but who cares? The email address there, dgune@verizon.net. Many of you are working through the school email program. I don't check that one regularly. The one I check regularly is the verizon.net, and I will also be checking the link in our Canvas. You can send emails via the Canvas or messages via the Canvas as well. This comes directly to me. The reason I don't do the school email so often is I have to go through a different server. I have to sign into the school server and then work with that, and anything that I want saved or moved back and forth, I have to email to myself again so that it's here on my computer rather than on their server, and it just becomes a pain in the butt. That's not quite as much a pain in the butt for this class, since we are all this is the only class I'm teaching this semester. Since I'm still learning this online stuff, I didn't want to screw up a lot of people. I'll just screw up a few of you, okay? So I'm only teaching one class this semester. That's one of the great values of being old. I don't live check to check anymore. I don't have to keep my schedule full so that I can afford to buy my liquor for the night or whatever, okay? So I'm only going to be teaching this one class. But normally, I not only teach on the classes on East LA campus, I also teach a lot of extension courses out in the high schools in the area. So I have to pull everybody together from multiple campuses, multiple servers. So I've just gotten the habit of using my Verizon.net. So dgune@verizon.net is the preferred, even though I can't put that in as the preferred email in Canvas. I tried that this morning. I wanted to make it easier for you that when you sent something, it would come to my Verizon. And as soon as I put in my Verizon as my preferred email address, my Zoom said, I don't exist anymore. So I had to go back to the LACCD email so that I could exist in the Zoom environment with you. So if you want to talk to me during the week, the dgune@verizon.net is the best email to use there. Like I said, I'll check the other ones, but it won't happen nearly as often as I do the Verizon. The Verizon is the one that I check at least twice a day, more often when there's an assignment due, okay? Speeches, this is a speech class, although you're not actually going to stand up in front of a class and speak, are you?
No, okay. That's part of the adaptation we're going to do here. But you're still going to be doing the 4 assignments without actually standing in front of a class and doing it. You're doing the same thing every other class has done, except standing in front of a class to do it. This is a little bit of side stuff, once again, understanding how. There are 3 main viewpoints, 3 main schools of thought in public speaking. Rhetoric, lifelong learning, and performance. If you have a good professor, they cover all 3 of those areas. If you have a professor who's not quite as good, they only cover 1 or 2 of those areas. In this course, the performance one is going to suffer. Part of the purpose of the course is to get you standing up in front of a class and experiencing that physically, what that's like. You could get a little bit of the stuff in the, what your Zoom meetings in your business are going to be like, but it's not nearly the same thing as standing in front of a group and doing a presentation. So that's going to suffer here, but we're still going to cover 2/3 of the major schools as we get through here. I'm going to recommend that you do practicing outside of class, even though you're not going to have to do it in front of the class here. The main thing for that, once again, is your experience. The second thing is timing. There are time limits on all of the speeches. Now, I will make judgments about whether your speech is too long or too short based on the outline that you turn in to me, but the only way you know for sure how long it is to stand up and do it. And when you stand up and do it, if it's too long, you have to take things out of the outline. If you stand up and do it and it's too short, you have to put more stuff into the outline. So we go through here. So even though you're not going to be actually doing the speeches in class, I still want you to be standing up, practicing out loud from your note cards at home, okay? And if you can get your family to listen to you, or if you can convince your friends to hang out, that would be even better. So you can pretend you have an audience there. Find one that loves you, they'll be nicer to you. So anyway, there's 4 assignments in here. The first one, the self-introduction speech, it's 2 minutes long. It's worth 50 points. The second one, the lesson speech, 3 to 4 minutes long. It's worth 100 points. The informative speech, the first real research-based speech, that's 5 to 6 minutes long, worth 150 points. And finally, the persuasive speech, 6 to 7 minutes long, worth 200 points. The speeches start out very simple and very cheap, and they get longer and harder and more complex and worth more points as we move through the semester, okay? The bottom line here is you have to get better. You have to practice this, you have to think about it, you have to study it, you have to improve for the next one. The requirements for the first one are very, very simple, and you'll get those requirements today before we leave. The second one, there's more requirements added onto it. The third one, there's significantly more requirements added onto it. And the fourth one is the most complex assignment you'll probably ever do in college. Well, it's the most complex organizational pattern anyway. You'll do longer ones, you'll do things with more sources, but this will be the most complex as we get through. So you must improve. You might be able to, still pass the class by not doing one of the early speeches. Points wise, you can still do that. We have makeups at the end of the class, the end of the semester for 50%. But if you don't do the early ones, you don't get the experience and learning to be able to do the next level, because the next speech is going to be done at a different level than the one that came before it. So I don't recommend you skip any of the assignments. The last 2, the informative, the persuasive, if you decide to blow off one of those, you can destroy your entire semester. There's only 650 points possible in this course, and the persuasive speech alone is worth 200. So if you just don't do that one, your entire semester, you'll have to take the class again. So do all of these. I'll give you this guarantee. If you do all of the assignments and take the tests, even if you suck canal water on them, okay?
because of the way I have it set up for being able to improve the assignments through the semester, if you do them all, I will give you a guarantee that you will at least pass. I can't guarantee you an A because that takes more than just doing the assignment. But if you at least do all of them, I can guarantee you you'll pass. Not because I pass people who do them, but because if you do them, you'll earn enough points. The only way you can fail this class, the only way you can have to take this class again is by not doing assignments. So that's up to you. I'll yell at you Wednesday mornings every and I'll send notifications out to you, but it's really up to you. You have to do the assignment. That means getting started on the assignment as soon as you get it. If the assignment isn't due until next Tuesday and you wait till next Monday to work on it, what happens? What if something happens? What if you have to work overtime? What if you get sick? What if your baby gets sick? Okay, what if your car breaks down? Okay, so get started on it immediately. We'll get through some more of that. Boy, I'm doing a lot more umming since I'm just sitting here. I just noticed that as well. And like you know, those are what are called verbal fillers. They're conversation regulators. It's the way we keep other people from jumping in. And maybe because I'm sitting here without getting good responses from the little squares in front of me, I'm filling the blanks. There's normally a lot more quiet time, a lot more silence from me. So I'm filling those. In conversation, if there's at least a dyad when you're talking to somebody, how do you know when it's your time, it's your turn to talk? The way you know it's your turn to talk is your conversational partner pauses for a certain length of time. When they stop talking for a certain length of time, you go, okay, I can talk now, it's my turn. And that pause between conversations is culturally specific. If you have experienced discomfort or awkwardness when speaking to somebody from a different culture, that's because oftentimes that pause is different. Some cultures have a longer pause, and if you're talking to a culture that has a longer pause, you'll jump in before they want you to do it. They haven't released it yet. And if they're from a shorter pause, they'll look at you like, what's the matter? Aren't you listening to me? So there'll be a lot of that in there. If you have to think of something and you don't want the other person to start talking, we fill those blanks. We fill those silent times with and, like, you know.
Professor, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm married, and I've been married 12 years. My wife, when I speak to her, she says, it's not a monologue, this is a dialogue. Am I missing cues? Because we're from the same culture.
Well, you know, you may have to expand your concept or idea of what culture is, okay? Being from the same ethnicity, sometimes even being from the same city and the same ethnicity does not mean you're from the same culture.
Oh, she's from a rural background. I'm more urban.
Uh-huh.
Urbane. I like to.
That's okay.
Right? So,
Yeah.
you know.
Very, very different cultures, aren't they?
Yeah.
You might be the same ethnicity, but you're not from the same culture.
Yeah, because we're both Mexican Americans.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but she grew up, you know, right next to the border in Calexico. 15,000 people, you know.
Part of what we hope happens to you in college is that you start to recognize both the similarities and the differences as we go through here. Ideas of what you think the world are like should be altering significantly in the next 4 years, 5 years for you. Okay?
Well, the sad thing on this, Professor, is I transferred from ELAC 25 years ago in 1996, 24 years ago. So I may need more than 4 years.
It's not done until you say it's done.
Okay.
I have a friend.
You, Professor.
I have a good friend.
I'm enjoying your lecture, just to let you know.
I have a good friend who has a master's degree in communication now, She's not teaching, but she has a master's degree in communication. And it took her 11 years because she was a single mother. And she kept taking breaks and only being able to take one class at a time. And if she failed that class, she had to take that class again. It took her 11 years to get her master's degree. So I don't hear anybody whining about, oh my God, it's taking me 5 years, okay? Marilee will slap you in your head for that because it took her 11. It's not done until you decide it's done, okay?
That's true.
All right, so you have to get better. You're gonna have exams. You're gonna have 2 exams in here. The midterm exam is gonna cover chapters 1 through 10. It's going to be straight out of the book. If you do the practice exams in the back of each chapter, you'll do wonderfully on the exam or for the midterm. The final exam usually has a lot more stuff covered in it. I think that's going to be limited because you're not going to get quite as much lecture from me, but it is still comprehensive. It's not chapters 11 towards the end, it's the entire book again. Public speaking, was that somebody wanting to talk? Okay, public speaking is not like a science. Gosh, I lost my thought. Damn it. Can anybody help me what I was talking about before I broke off to that?
I'm sorry, Professor. We were talking about the pause, and then I kind of started talking about my kind
No,
of.
I was into the exams by then.
Doing the end of chapter exams will help you for the first midterm, but the second it will be less.
Yeah, you're not going to get as much. Thank you. They're not getting as much because you're not getting as much lecture on there, but it does cover the entire textbook. Thank you. It does cover the entire textbook again. That's where I got lost. It's not just chapters 11 towards the end. It's the whole thing. Public speaking is an art. You can't read chapters 1 through 10, take the exam, and then flush everything out of your brain to make room for more stuff. Okay, you got enough room in there for everything. You have to build on the concepts that came before. That means you have to remember the concepts in chapters 1 when you're finishing chapter 12. You have to have those things in your mind. So the midterm is going to cover the entire, or rather the final is going to cover the entire text again. I may or may not include fill in the blanks and essays on this one. Most of my essay questions that I write come from lecture rather than from the textbook. So you might not get a lot of that, but still understand there's 2 of them. The midterm, 50 questions worth 50 points. The final exam is going to be worth 100 points. I haven't written it yet, so I don't know how much or if there'll be fill in the blanks or essays in that one, but there certainly will be multiple choice questions, okay?
All right, great.
Class policies. This is usually when I get mean, but this is such a free environment that we're dealing with here. Okay, anyway, an outline is required to be turned in for each speech presented. Now you're basically going to be being graded off of the outlines themselves, so it would behoove you to turn the outline in, but it's required anyway. Speech outlines must be typed, that is word processed and printed. You're going to actually be sending them to me, either sending me attachments to my D-Unit Verizon or sending me links to online documents. I should probably put a notice up somewhere about this. If you send me links to an online document, make sure that I can edit it, because I'm going to put my comments in the middle of your assignment. It's going to be similar to me actually writing on your outline rather than having it. So make sure that I can edit it, invite me to edit, or have the document editable. If you send me an attachment to my Verizon address, make sure it is a doc or a docx, something like that. I can't edit PDFs very easily, and it becomes a problem when you start editing PDF files. And if you're using a Mac, there's no easy filter between PC and Macintosh Pages. So if you send me a Pages document, I can't do anything with it. Well, I can open it up and disassemble it and find the JPG. I can find a picture of your outline in it, but I can't edit it. So if you're using...
Professor,
Yeah.
so
Would you prefer us to send you like a Google Doc and then just have you edit it? Would that be like simpler?
Either way will work for me. Either send me an actual attachment or send me a link to a doc. If you send me a link to a doc, once again, make sure I can edit that doc. Okay?
Yeah, I got it.
Hopefully you'll also be sending me rough drafts before the actual assignment date. Let me warn you about something with outlines and just assignments in college in general, okay? Very seldom will you get this kind of guarantee from a scientist, but I will give you a 99.999% guarantee that you will not get the assignment right the first time. Okay? You will not get the assignment right the first time. Especially if you're fresh out of high school, you're used to, getting the assignment and waiting until the night before the assignment's due, and then you stay up until 2 a.m. in the morning, getting the whole assignment done, and then you print it out in the morning and you bring it in and hand it to your teacher and go, "There, I did it. Cool." What did you actually turn in to that teacher? You turned in your first draft of the paper, didn't you? And then people go, "Why don't I get good grades?" Okay. Nobody gets it right the first time. Even if you're amazingly confident that you're right, I highly recommend you send rough drafts to me. I recommend you send rough drafts to any professor who will read them for you, because they're going to tell you what to do to get a better grade. When you send me a rough draft, I'm going to tell you right in the outline, this is wrong, or I don't understand this, or you need to do this, you need to add these things in here. That's me telling you how to get more points on the assignment, isn't it? So send rough drafts to me. You've seen nobody moving around here, have you? Okay, I am indeed married and I have children, but my wife and I live in separate houses. We live 16 miles apart. If you want to find out why that is, hang around after class, we'll talk about it, but we're very happily married, living 16 miles apart. The only other living beings in this house that I know of are my two snakes over in the vivarium there. I live alone here, and I'm in the middle of a lockdown. Okay, I'm 66 years old. I'm morbidly obese. I'm a big old fat guy with some significant arterial disease in there somewhere. So I'm hiding like crazy in my house here. I don't go outside at all. They deliver my groceries. They deliver my drugs. I don't even go to birthday parties for my children and my grandchildren, because if I get COVID, I'm a goner. Okay, I'm a man, I'm old, I'm fat, and I've got coronary artery disease. I'm out of here, okay? So I'm here all the time, and I would love to be entertained by doing your rough drafts, okay? So don't feel like, oh my God, I'm bothering him. It's either you or Netflix, okay? And I've seen everything on Netflix practically. I'm starting to watch things that I don't really like because I haven't seen it before, okay? In any event, okay. So you have to turn in an outline. It has to be printed. For each one of them, since we're online here, I'm going to be giving you rubrics. I'm giving you much, much, much more printed material this year than I have ever done before, because you're not getting the lectures. And even if I do give you the lecture, you can't ask questions effectively. You're not going to be asking or getting answers easily. So I'm giving you a lot more written stuff. Make sure you follow the rubric before you send me a rough draft. When you think you're done, look at your assignment, look at the rubric next to it, and just go line by line. The rubric says I need this. Did I do that? The rubric says I need that. Did I do that? The rubric says I need that. Do it line by line, and you'll get much, much better grades there.
Professor?
Yeah.
Is there a due date for the rough draft?
There will be on later assignments, but for the early assignments here, it's all in the same week. I'll give you the self-intro speech before we leave today. That's the last thing I've planned here, is to give you the instructions for the self-intro, and it's due next week. It's actually due Tuesday night, so that on Wednesday morning I can give you the next assignment that's going to be due in the next week. So there's not a lot of time for due dates for rough drafts. When we go to the informative and the persuasive, those are significantly more complex assignments. I will have due dates for rough drafts in there. It will take you, I don't want to scare you, frighten you at this point, but it will take you 2 to 3 weeks to finish those assignments effectively. These first two are designed to give you some early successes, and to get you to teach you how to do the kinds of outlining things that we need.
All right.
The real central concepts on this course are not starting to be tested on until we get to the informative. There'll be a significant set. Okay, so as you look through the syllabus, you'll see later on for the informative, the persuasive, there will be due dates on rough drafts, first drafts, rough drafts, graded drafts. Okay. All right. I already talked about the 50%. I've talked about being responsible for learning. You need to read. Don't wait for me to tell you. You need to read. Okay. Office hours. We're not going to have any office hours. Okay. Since I switched over to asynchronous, or mostly asynchronous here, I will continue to be here on Wednesday morning, even though I will be letting you go before 10:30, before 10 o'clock. I will still be here. So if you want to hang out and talk to me, I'll still hang here and talk to you as long as you want me to talk to you. Beyond that, the emails. You have my private email address that comes on here, and I will see, like I said, I'll be seeing it at least twice a day sometimes, or probably more. But that's about how we're going to be dealing with the concept of office hours here. I'm not going to schedule a separate time because we have this time here that's already scheduled, okay? You don't give a shit about expected outcomes, do you? Grading, that's stuff that has to be put in there for the administration. The grading on there's 650 points possible in this class. 90%'s an A, 80%'s a B, 70%'s a C, and anything below that is really unacceptable for this class, okay? This is a general education class. You must earn at least a C in order for it to transfer. You can't earn a D and go, okay, cool, I didn't fail, okay? It doesn't count. If you get a D, if you earn a D in this course, you have to take it again. You need to get at least a C in order for it to transfer. So I would like to say anything below a C is unacceptable. There should be no surprises. I will get your assignments back to you by the next week at the latest, sometimes often quite early, much earlier than that. So you will always know your grade in this class. If you don't know how to figure out a percentage, I'll teach you how to figure out a percentage. But no surprises, you'll always know what your grade is. If you're starting to fall behind grade-wise, we need to alter what you're doing, okay? So we can get up to that point. Plagiarism. Everything you turn into me should be your own work. I don't know how much more to put that to that. Don't cheat. How about that? Academic dishonesty. I know it's much, much easier now with the internet. They're so easy. It's so easy to just cut and paste stuff together, okay? Understand, as easy it is for you to cut and paste, that's how easy it is for me to search it up as well. If I take what you put in there and drop it into Google in a sentence, guess what? I'm going to find the same source you found, aren't I? So don't cheat, use your own words, all right? Does that mean you're not going to have sources? Of course not. The difference is you cite them. You give me a bibliography with those in there. In the persuasive speech, I'm going to require you to put parenthetical notation in where those sources are from so I can change back and forth. So the basic thing here is do your own work. If you don't understand what plagiarism is, hang out afterwards and talk to me. If you don't understand the penalties for academic dishonesty, they're in the catalog, or you can hang around afterwards. You just don't want to do it, okay? There is nothing here that you can't do. Tens of thousands of students have done exactly the same assignments you're going to be doing. You're not more stupid than all of them, are you? Say no. Okay? You can do these things. None of this is beyond you. If you're having a problem reading the textbook, we need to get you in and get some remedial reading done. If you're having a problem writing papers, now there's no papers in this class, but if you're having a problem writing papers, you need to get you into a remedial writing class. Oh my God, I don't want to take remediation. Oh, that's... Remember, you haven't heard my whole story, but I'm a reentry student as well. I was expelled from high school. I went off and worked in construction for 13 years before I came back to school. Okay. So when I came back to school, I tested into paragraph writing. When I took my English placement test in college, I tested into paragraph writing. Okay. I knew how to structure a sentence, but I didn't even know how to put together a paragraph. So if you have to take a remediation, you take, in math, I tested into beginning algebra because I was in construction. So I kept doing arithmetic. I still did a lot of arithmetic to get me going. But don't go, oh my God, I have to take another class. Go take it. It makes everything else you do after that easier. Okay? Go to the Learning Center. Find out, bring your reading scores up. Bring your vocabulary up so you get to it, okay? But don't cheat, okay? The last thing on the syllabus here, before we get to the schedule, which I'm not really going to do a lot of talking about, is the textbook. You should have already, based on my notifications to you, you should have already downloaded a copy of the textbook or purchased a textbook from somewhere and started reading. If you have not, you are already behind in the reading, okay? Like I said, this is the most used textbook in the United States. You can get used copies everywhere. You can get them online everywhere. There's a link, or I didn't put the link in here, but if you just go onto Google and put the Art of Public Speaking PDF and hit enter, you will find free copies that students have put together for you because they love you, okay? Stephen has not, there's been nothing significant changed in this field in about the last 30 years. We've expanded it a little bit more. So we're looking at things like queer communication. We're looking at things that, I hate that word queer, but that's what we call it. Sexual orientation communication, a lot of gender communication. We've expanded into media communications as we've gone through here. But the basic theory hasn't changed in like 30 years, 40 years, okay? So that means that authors don't have a whole lot of new stuff to write about in the textbook. Now they continue to write new editions because that's the only way they make money again. The author and the publisher only make money on the first sale of a new book. Anytime you buy a used book, the author or the publisher do not get any money for that one. And so when an author signs a contract with a publisher now in academe, they guarantee that they will write a new edition within 2 years. Even if nothing changed, they have to write a new edition within 2 years so that they can get paid again, because it's the only way to get paid. But I don't really care much about that because they don't send me any money. But that means that nothing has changed for a while. You can earn an A in this class. We're in the 13th edition in this text now, the 13th edition, at least 2 years between each one of those. How much has the theory changed? Not much, okay? So you can earn an A in this class using a 12th edition, a 13th, a 12th, an 11th, a 10th. I think you can even still use a 9th edition. So if you're online finding cheap books and all you can find is the 10th edition, or if you're downloading a PDF and all you can find is the 10th edition, you're fine. You'll be great. I guarantee you, if you do the exams at the back, or the practice tests and the things, and you do all the assignments, you will still pass this class, okay? So you don't have to go off and spend 140, I think it's 140, 160, somewhere around there, dollars for this new textbook in the bookstore. If somebody else is paying for your books, sure, do it. That's cool. But don't worry if you can't find a 13th edition, okay? If you find a 12th, 11th, a 10th, I think even a 9th, you'll still be fine, okay? So get it. Any questions about the quote syllabus at this point? Have I opened any thoughts? Maybe I'll do a quick test somewhere later on and see how long it lasts. In research, in my master's degree, I focused into two areas. Performance studies, because I was a forensics coach, a competitive speech and debate coach, and a competitor before that, but also communication in the classroom, because I knew I was coming out to be a professor. That was my goal. And one of the things that we know is that the pause between when the professor asks a question and when students actually respond do not agree. That in a normal classroom situation, professors ask questions and then on average answer their own question in 1.7 seconds. They ask an amazingly you probably dealt with this in classes. They ask an amazingly complex question, and then in 1.7 seconds, they start answering that question for you. That means students learn not to think about the question.
Professor, is that a rhetorical question then?
you are
a question?
You are trained not to ask questions. You're trained to sit there and wait for the answer. So one of the things that I do, because I know that and I want to teach you that, is in a normal situation, I will ask a question and then I will just stand there and stare at you. I'll make eye contact all the way around the class, waiting for somebody to think through the answer, think through the question, decide they know the answer, and then build up the courage to go, hey, Dave, I think I know that. Okay, that can take up to about 40 seconds on simple concepts. And as I was sitting there listening to the pause, I thought, you don't feel the same exigency in a Zoom meeting. You don't feel the same thing. Eventually you'll start to get uncomfortable with how long the pause has been, but your brain wasn't thinking, do I know the answer to that question? Were you? I was watching the eyes that I could see here, and you were literally just waiting for me to tell you. That's going to be weird. Maybe later I'll do an experiment. Well, I won't do it with you because I've talked to you. Maybe in the maybe next semester. Yeah.
I just had I had a quick question. Do you have any tips as far as reading the PDF textbook, as to get more information, maybe watch more videos of public speaking?
I do, but you won't believe me. Okay.
Wow.
I actually have a lecture on how to study a book and how to take tests. But I learned a long time ago that if I do it too early in the semester, you won't believe me. It's one of the weirdest things about communication in the classroom. I'm the only person sitting in this group that has an advanced degree in communication and has been teaching public speaking for 25 years. And I'll say something, this is the rule. But instead of believing me, you look at your friend and go, you think that's right? How the fuck do they know? But you trust your friends more than you trust me. So we have to deal with those things as we're in here. And part of that was you were waiting for it. And I've learned that if I tell you now, you won't believe me. I'm going to tell you a way to study that. I told you earlier, reading and studying are not the same things.
I'm going to teach you a way to study the text, and it's going to sound like so much freaking work that your subconscious mind's going to go, oh, I don't need to do that. I've been studying for 12 years now. I'm cool. And you'll do it the same way you've been doing it, and you'll get to the midterm, and you'll crash and burn, and then you'll come to me going, oh, how come I got it? Okay. So I wait until after the midterm, until you crash and burn. But understand the midterm's only worth 50 points. Even if you crash and burn, it's not going to destroy your grade. Okay? So at this point, I would like to make sure that you read through as much of the text, study the text as much as you know how, and then later on, I'll teach you once you realize that what you're doing really doesn't work. I'm so sorry for that, but I've learned through the years that it does, you don't believe me. And it sounds like too much work. If I wrote it down for you and you just read it, you'd go, fuck that. I'm not doing that. That's crazy talk. Okay, I have a life. I have people who love me. I have a job to do. I can't do that crap. Once we explain it to you, it's not as much work as it looks. Okay, so
Professor,
yes,
I told you that I have a degree already, right?
uh-huh.
And I did a little bit of graduate work.
Cool.
And with graduate work, you read the footnotes, you read the reference, what you would read as an undergraduate. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I didn't finish my graduate program. I didn't want to read all those books that you had to read. So I kind of understand.
My first wife did needlepoint. You know what needlepoint is? So I look back here, I go, I don't have that one up. My first wife made me a needlepoint sign with a poem on it when I was a graduate student. It says, now I lay me down to rest, a pile of books upon my chest. If I should die before I wake, that's one less test I have to take. Okay? Because she watched me. As a graduate student, I would sit in my recliner reading journals. And I would read journals and read journals and read journals and, well, study, not reading, but study. And when I just couldn't do anymore, I'd lay back in my recliner, put the journal down on my chest and go to sleep. I snore like a buzzsaw, okay? I'm fat. And when I would finally wake myself up, I'd get my eyes working, and the first thing I'd do is lift up my journal again and start reading. It gets significantly heavier as you get on. So yeah, part of it is you were never, do not feel bad about this, okay? I'm sorry I have to hurt you with this, but you were never taught how to study. Never. Even if you took AP classes, you were not taught how to study.
You know, Professor, for this program that I'm going through, the respiratory science, it's an associate science degree. And there's a book on PQRST, preview, review, question, state, and test. And
that's what I'm going to teach you.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yep. That's what I'm going to teach you.
Oh,
I learned
wow.
I learned it at SQ3R, but that's exactly what I'm going to teach you to do. So if you have that in front of you and you are doing it, you're learning.
Well, the thing is, Professor, it's like you say, it's the time.
It looks like a lot of work.
I'm married. I have 3 children. So, you did it the same way, so there's no excuse, like you said.
Okay. Let me warn you about something here, okay?
Yes.
I can't think of the group now. Maybe it's Rush. Anyway, can't think of the group now. But there's an old rock group that has a song. It says, "Pay the price, never count the cost." Pay the price, never count the cost. Okay? If you want a degree, do what the fuck you have to do.
Yeah.
If you have to stop playing, if you have to stop drinking, if you have to, tell your friends you'll see them again in the summertime or whatever, you do it. If you want the degree, if you want it, you just do it. If you start counting the cost, if you sit down and go, oh man, I haven't been bowling, and oh my God, and I haven't hung out with my friends since this time, and I can't even remember the last time I went out camping. If you start counting the costs, it'll seem like too much and you'll go, okay, forget it. Because most of you, based on the average age in the class, most of you are working already. And work is way easier than college, isn't it? Work is way easier than college.
Yeah, Professor, I actually I was working as a substitute teacher, but I took time off from work to get into the program. So I haven't been working since last year in June.
That's good.
Yeah, so I'm taking the hit, but it's to, you know, 'cause I majored in philosophy and Latin American studies. So there really isn't a lot of you know, unless you go into teaching with that kind of background.
You can do anything
Right.
you want with it. Nobody cares what your degree's in. All they care is that you have a degree. We'll talk about that later in the semester probably. Okay, if you go to the second page, most of you aren't looking at it with me, so it doesn't really matter. There is a schedule that's set up here with what we're going to be doing. Mostly what you're concerned on there and mostly what's covered on there are when the assignments are due, when I'm going to be giving you the lecture on the assignment, when the assignment is due. I'm going to alter it a little bit because this will be put that the assignment is due on the day on Wednesdays, and I'm actually going to make it the night before, so we don't have to deal with things coming in and coming out, and you going, "Hey, Dave, did you get my outline?" You know, while 40 other people are sitting here, I don't want to answer to you, "Oh yeah, I got it," or "I didn't get it." So I'll make it the night before to make sure those things are due. When the rough drafts are due, when the midterm's going to be, when the final's going to be, when the makeups are going to be available for you. All those are scheduled out in front of you. I'm fairly sure I got all the dates right. One of the things you didn't get to experience is I usually give you more of an exposure to my psyche here. I'm what's called a polychronic individual. I view time significantly different than most of you view time. And so I mess up time a lot. And that, when I say time, it doesn't just mean hours or days. It also means dates and years. Being friends with a true polychronic is really hard because we view time. I may not have spoken to you for 3 years, but in my mind, since I think about you regularly, I think we're in communication. And so I get back in touch with friends. I go, "Hey, how you doing, Joe?" And Joe goes, "Fuck you, man. You haven't talked to me for..." It's real hard being friends with a polychronic individual. And if you're polychronic, you'll understand this thing goes down. So I may have messed up the dates. If you find a screw up in the dates, please let the rest of us know so we can fix it, because I mess up the dates all the time. Time means nothing to me as we get through. So that's all I'm going to do with the schedule there. It really doesn't matter. It's all just dates. Okay. I think I'm going to be able to take roll, quote unquote, from the people tab in Canvas, because in the people tab in Canvas, it tells me the last time you signed in and tells me how long you stayed there. So rather than me trying to go through and go, "Joe, Fred, Mary, Ed," and you go, yeah, okay, I'm gonna try working it that way. So for at least this week, and I think next week, we're still going to be taking roll for them on there. After that, you really only need to show up if there's something due, or show up if you have a question. Once the census date is passed, I don't have to take roll anymore, so that will become a little bit easier after that point as well, okay? All right. Oh, did I print myself one? I didn't. Hold on just a minute while I jump off and print myself something here, okay? Don't want to do that. Damn it, I can't minimize you because I'm recording. Well, push you down. There, you're at the bottom. How boring is this? I published them for you, but I didn't print one, so I don't have anything to read in front of me. Hello. Oh, little printer, thank you. This sucks. You don't even talk to each other if I'm not talking.
Yeah, Professor, this is very, and we have to adapt. But this
Yeah.
is very disappointing. This is very disappointing because when I went back to school, you know, I'm a returning student. I was really happy to go back to ELAC after 24 years, and just to see the difference in the structure of the school, all the new buildings, and finally got the money that ELAC. I mean, the investment in the buildings and the structures. That was a big deal because when I was at school, I don't know if you remember the 93, 92 recession.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of cut in classes at ELAC. And so they proposed a new policy with the whole district. They were going to distribute the funds according to the student enrollment. And guess what? ELAC had the most enrollment than any other community college in Los Angeles. And but they didn't want to stick to their word and give more money to ELAC because they said, oh, all these other years, there was ELAC didn't have the most enrollment and still got money, so we're gonna divide it up the old way. And I actually went with a bunch of buddies to downtown LA to hear the meeting with LAUSD, the supervisors. And, you know, we made a big noise, but, you know, it's finally nice.
But nothing changed.
All that investment. Yeah. And this was, you know, when I was an undergraduate, you know, 93, 94.
Cool.
Almost 30 years ago. It was nice to go and see a new buildings, right? You know, because you know how I used to look at
Absolutely.
people with the bungalows, right?
That way
It
you
was nice. There were a lot more
you get-
trees.
you
The
get stuck
baseball
in new-
field was really nice.
you get stuck in new elevators more often than you get stuck in old elevators, trust me.
Yeah.
While they're working the kinks out of the new ones, they get breakdown more often than the old ones that have been working for a while. Okay, I want to move on to your assignment for this week, the self-introduction speech. And I didn't make it available to you until this morning because just that label self-introduction makes your brain do things that I didn't want it to do. Because if you did before class, went ahead and opened it up on the home page and in the files, there is a thing for this document for the self-introduction speech. And there's also a document for example outlines for the rubric, okay? And what I'm gonna go over is the assignment for you here. Don't know if you have put split screens up or if you've printed like me or whatever, but this would be the time to ask most of the questions as we get through. Put a lot of explanation in it that would normally be in lecture, but it's being covered here, okay? Anyway, this is our self-introduction speech. It's your first speech. It should be 2 minutes long. While you are at home standing up practicing out loud from your note cards, which we'll talk about in a minute as well, in a few minutes as well, you should be speaking approximately 2 minutes every time. You'll finish a little before, a little bit after, but not more than 30 seconds short or long. It should still be finishing somewhere between 1:30 and 2:30, okay? The only way you know how long it is by standing up and saying it out loud with a timer on you, okay?
Professor,
Yes.
are we gonna present it in class, or is it just gonna be the rough draft?
Well, it's not going to be a rough draft you turn in, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're not actually going to be standing up here, but you have to stand up and practice it to know how long it is. You're doing everything that a normal class would do except the actual standing up in front of a class. The context is so different that as far as I'm concerned, you would get no value from us all clicking and watching you one at a time do your speeches on here, which is what we do in a normal speech class. You would sit in your seat while everybody went up one at a time and did their speech in front of us. And with the restrictions of the Zoom meetings here and the video, you're not going to get much value from that. So your grades are going to come mostly from the outlines.
Do you have like a word count or estimate of how long the draft should be?
Yeah, hold on. I'll cover what the outlines or requirements are. You're learning you must have been late, huh? Anyway, because we covered most of this at the beginning. Your outlines are going to be different. It's a kind of outlining you've never done before. So I'm going to give you requirements for each outline because each outline is going to become more and more complex as we move through. Okay? Right. I'm never going to give you page limits or number limits. I give you time in speaking and judge based on what we're going to talk about today. Okay, this is a 2-minute speech of self-introduction based on a newspaper or magazine article. See, right away, it doesn't sound like anything you've ever done to introduce yourself, huh? That's why I didn't give it to you earlier. The speech should be delivered extemporaneously from brief notes that occupy no more than one side of a single 4x6 index card. Do not read your speech. Use as much eye contact as possible. This extemporaneous delivery is what audiences want. What your brain wants to do, since it's a speech, I don't need my glasses all the time. What your brain wants to do, since you've been in school for at least 12 years already, is you want to write a speech. You want to write a paper. You want to write out the entire thing like a paper because that's what you've been doing. And then you want to either read or memorize that paper. I am absolutely sure you have all heard somebody reading their paper in front of you in class, haven't you? Do you like listening to people read? It sucks because reading and speaking are not the same skill. When you read, you do not phrase correctly, you do not intone correctly. It is horrid. So you don't want to read it. And I don't know if you understand how hard it would be to memorize 2 minutes worth of information, but just 2 minutes worth of information is hella hard to memorize. Later on, when we get to the informative and the persuasive, where you have 5 minutes worth with citations in it, there is no possible way you could memorize any of that. So we're going to be doing extemporaneous delivery. That means well prepared and practiced in advance, but always delivered from notes. Even though you're not going to be doing it in front of us, you're going to write outlines. You're going to turn in outlines. You're going to practice from notes. And I'm going to give you some significant restrictions on what notes are rather than your outline. Your notes, the speaking outline, the notes that you have when you practice, and the outline itself that you turn into me are not the same thing. They are completely different tools that serve different purposes. So you have to use both of the tools in order for it to work. As you're practicing at home, I want you to practice using note cards, not, well, you should never be writing a manuscript. If you do what your brain wants to do, if you write a paper, okay, if you write a manuscript, you will set yourself up to fail when you actually do presentations out loud. Because once you write it, when you write a paper, you write the sentence and you read the sentence. If it doesn't read exactly the way you want it to, you go back and you change that sentence. And you change it until it sounds exactly the way you want it to sound. The problem with that is now your subconscious mind knows that there are the right question or the right words to say. And when you stand up in front of a class, you're going to have adrenaline pumping. When you stand up in front of a meeting, you're going to have adrenaline pumping in your system. That adrenaline doesn't just go to your heart and your lungs and your hands. That adrenaline also goes to your brain. And it makes you, or it limits your ability to think. And so if you have the right words down, your brain's going to be on fire with adrenaline and you're going to make mistakes. Now, if you make a mistake when you have a memorization, the only thing you can do is go back to the beginning and start again, don't you? Some of you might remember from elementary school when you had to start memorizing paragraphs and things to do. If you messed up, you had to go back to the beginning and start again, or at least go back partway and start into it again. You can't do that when you're doing a presentation with people. So you want to constantly be working from notes, brief speaking notes. That means you have to be familiar enough with it from practicing ahead of time that you can go ahead through the whole thing. Even doing it this way, you're going to make mistakes. One of the things you also have to overcome is this concept of making mistakes. Everybody, every human in the world makes mistakes. Okay? You're no different. Everybody makes mistakes. We don't judge people for making mistakes. We judge people on how they react to those mistakes. So if you're not prepared for this, or if you have the right words down, then you make a mistake. When you make a mistake, your brain then causes you to put more adrenaline into your system because you know you screwed up. And if that happens a couple of times, your brain becomes so overstimulated with stress hormones in it, you can't think anymore. I don't know if any of you have to deal or have had to deal with or can still dealing with test anxiety, where you sit down to take a test and you know last night that you knew everything, but you start finding things you can't remember. And as soon as you start finding things you can't remember, adrenaline starts pumping, and that adrenaline hits your brain and it starts overpowering your cortex, your thinking conscious mind, and it makes you forget more. And so you realize that you don't know the next answer, and that puts more adrenaline into your system. And before you know it, you're sitting there staring at that test in front of you with tears streaming down your face because you're so stupid. Okay? It is simply your brain being overcome with adrenaline. And part of what we're going to teach you here is how to deal with that. Don't let me forget to remind you about the link. That'll get you more of a basic understanding of where this comes from. You must practice out loud from notes. That way, when you mess up a little bit, it's okay, because you didn't have to do those words. You just had to do that idea in here. And when you do mess up, and you will mess up, You don't go, oh my God, I'm sorry. You just keep talking. When I remind you about the link that I want you to go, this video I want you to watch later on after class, I'll give extra points if somebody before noon, if somebody before noon can send me an email and tell me what I screwed up. And I made a huge mistake in that video. If you can email me, I'll give you a few extra points on your first assignment, okay? Because there was huge, but you won't be able to find it, or mostly you won't be able to find it, because I didn't go, oh my God, I fucked up. I just kept going. In this class, and in your other classes where you do it, your professor's going to have your outline or your paper in front of them, okay? In the real world, does your audience have your outline? In the real world, does your audience have your presentation in front of them? No, they don't have a clue what you were going to say. So if you make a mistake, the only way they know you made a mistake is if you tell them. So in public speaking, we don't apologize. Now, if you know the mistake was content-wise was bad, like if you said go to the green room and you actually meant go to the red room, you have to fix that. You have to, oh no, not the red one, the green one. But beyond that, you never apologize. You never fix it. You keep going. If it's not significantly content related, move on. What if you use the wrong word? What if you mispronounce somebody's name? So what? They're not in the audience, are they? They're not going to jump up and go, no, that's Gwen, not Gwen. Okay? You just keep talking, okay? So anyway, we got that to get through. Where are we? Extemporaneously well prepared and correction in advance. You've heard him read or going through this. Okay. Next section. Oh, any questions on that before I go to the next little section here? I don't even know if I'm going to keep asking those kinds of questions.
No, Professor, I have a question.
Very few
I'm making
people are
mistakes.
doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall Trump mentioning that influenza ended World War II? Did anybody stop him?
I don't remember the exact occurrence, but no, you don't. You don't.
He did say, he said that that influenza helped end World War II.
Yeah.
And, you know,
It doesn't happen. Informal presentation, it doesn't happen. Even if they know you're wrong, they won't say anything, okay? Okay, so to prepare for this speech, here's where it starts to get really weird, all right? And here's where you might want to write down things or at least make sure that you understand what I'm saying here. To prepare for this speech, I want you to read through a newspaper from the day you were born or a news magazine, something like Time or Newsweek, from the actual week you were born, okay? Now that doesn't mean you go get Friday's newspaper because you were born on a Friday. The actual date of your birth, including the year, okay? Now you're going to be online somewhere as you go through. And before you come to me and go, oh, Dave, I can't find anything, okay? I want you to know I did this assignment when I was in college, okay? And I was in college almost 30 years ago. I did this assignment when this thing's been around for decades. This is not something I just made up. We know exactly what this is doing for your learning and for your public speaking experience. I did this assignment when I was in college, and I found an article from June 12th, 1954, if you want to send me a birthday present later on in the year, June 12th, 1954, okay? Without the freaking internet. Okay? Without Google, without an internet, I found an article from June 12th, 1954. So if you come to me and say, oh, Dave, I can't find anything from 2001, I'm going to laugh at you. I'm not going to say, okay, don't worry. It's all right, mijo. Okay? I'm going to laugh at you. Tell you, go back, look again. Don't come to me whining. Go look. If you don't find it on your first search, guess what? Search it again. Change your terminology a little bit. Keep looking back and forth. If you don't know how to do research, go to the Learning Assistance Center, go to the library, and take a course on researching. Okay? You're going to be tested on that stuff all the way through. So for a newspaper from the day you were born, or a news magazine such as Time or Newsweek from the week you were born. Now, newspapers come out every day, so you can get the actual date of your birth. News magazines come out once a week, so you can only get the week that your birthday is in. Now, this eliminates popular magazines, doesn't it? Popular magazines come out once a month. They don't come out at least once a week. They come out once a month. So you can't use something like, I know, 17, or I can't even think of any because I don't read those things. I read mostly journals. You can't use something that only comes out once a month. It has to be a news magazine, Time, Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report, something like that, okay? Oh, and when I say read, I'm not really talking about reading. I'm talking about skimming, okay? Do you understand the difference between skimming and reading? I don't want you to sit down and read all the way through the newspaper or the magazine. I want you to just pop it up on your screen and just let your eye wash over the page. Read a word here or there, look at the pictures, look at the titles, read a sentence or something. Just skim through it. Don't sit down and read it, okay? It's not important to you. As you're skimming through it, something called your reticular activator in your brain is going to fire. Now, what that means is somewhere along the line, as you're skimming through, your brain's going to go, doink. Okay, you're going to notice something. Something's going to catch your eye. Something's going to pop out from the page into your consciousness. Something is going to happen where you notice something. As soon as your brain goes, huh, what? As soon as that happens, I want you to stop right then, and I want you to ask yourself this question. Ask yourself, why did I notice that thing? Why did that word catch my eye? Why did that title, why did that headline, why did that make me notice it? Because that's going to become very important for the next section. So don't sit down and just read. Skim all the way through it until, if you get all the way through it and nothing pops up for you, you skimmed it too fast. Go a little bit slower, pick up a few more things off the page. Somewhere in that newspaper or magazine, your reticular activator will fire as we go through, okay? So here's the next section on that relates very quickly to what we started talking about. Select an article, advertisement, photograph, editorial, etc. What does etc. mean? Whatever, okay? It doesn't have to be a full article. It can be one picture. It can be one word. It can be a letter if that's what popped out to you, okay? It doesn't have to be an article. So an article, advertisement, photograph, etc. from the newspaper or magazine that relates to your life in some meaningful way. And that's what we just started talking about. The relation to your life will come from answering the question, why did I notice that thing? Okay? Relates to your life in some meaningful way, using that item as a point of departure. Construct a speech that explains one aspect of your personality, background, beliefs, or aspirations, okay? When you ask yourself the question, why did I notice that? What it does is it activates one memory packet in your mind. If you sat down right now and go, what do I want to think about? You have to think through your whole life until something pops up. This activates a memory packet for you. So it gives you something to talk about. When I did it, here's the process I went through. When I did this assignment, I found an article about a 63-year-old woman who was arrested for throwing rocks through the windows of a church in her neighborhood, okay? That item, that article about that woman related to my life. That's the one I noticed. I went, huh? You know, I at the time, especially, I was not an old woman. I certainly didn't throw rocks through windows. So I had to ask myself, why? Why did I notice that? And I said, well, I noticed that because it had something about broken windows. Wow, why do broken windows? Because before I came back to school, I was in construction for 13 years. And I don't know if I've bragged enough about it, but I'm a highly intelligent individual. I'm a freaking genius, okay? Deal with it. Be proud of yourself. And in construction, even though I didn't have a high school diploma, I rose very quickly in the ranks. I went from job foreman to area foreman to ultimately Southern California supervisor. And part of what I did in my job there, once I read that, is I repaired the damage that happened to a building between when we finished the building and when the owner took possession of that building. So I fixed a lot of broken windows when I was in construction. I, washed off or cleaned off or covered over a lot of graffiti. I did up a lot of trash, washed off a lot of weird things. Okay. But
So it's not figuratively broken windows.
right. It was the broken windows that got me in there.
You get rid of a small crime and it prevents the big crime. That's a big issue right now with the police.
Let me finish through the thought. Okay. That when I went to that and I said, I didn't want to teach you how to fix broken windows, because most of you don't care about fixing broken windows. So, okay, I noticed it because it dealt with broken windows. I fixed a lot of broken windows. So what I want to talk about that, I want to talk about how to be successful in business, because I learned how to be obviously very successful in American business, okay? So I did a speech about my work ethic. And that came from finding an article that I noticed about a 63-year-old woman who was arrested for throwing rocks through a window in a church in her neighborhood. So why did I notice it? I noticed it because it had something to do with broken windows. Why do I care about broken windows? Because I fixed a lot of them. So why is that important? Because I grew up in construction. And I think my audience would like to know how to be successful in American business today. So that's what when I say find one that relates to your life in a meaningful way. Why did I notice that? By the time you finish answering, why did I notice that? You will have a very specific idea to talk about. And it will be only one thing to talk about, because it's only one memory packet. Because I only want to know one thing about you. I don't want to know your biography. I don't want to know your life story. I want to know what, you only got 2 minutes. I want to know one thing about you. Also, this is a self-introduction speech. It's not a speech about the article, is it? You use the article as a point of departure. Now, one of the main reasons for this is that we haven't done anything yet. You haven't read yet. I certainly haven't talked about how to begin or end a speech. There are very specific things that you do at the beginning of a speech to take control of your audience's thought process. You don't have any idea what that is. Intuitively, you've heard it before, but you have no idea consciously what that stuff is yet. So this gives you an easy way to start the speech. When I did this assignment, I found an article about a woman who broke windows. That relates to my life because, boom, now I'm into talking about me, aren't I? So we use this as a point of departure. You mention it at the beginning just to give you a way to start the speech. But by the time you get it finished starting the speech, you should be talking about the one thing about you that is important, what your message is. Is that cool? I know it's kind of weird because the brain hates an empty folder. Just like a computer hates a 0-byte file, your brain hates an empty folder. Right now you have a folder already open in your brain because we created it earlier called the self-introduction speech. And your subconscious mind is busy trying to put crap into that file because it doesn't like it being empty. You have to fight that because you cannot put anything into that file until you answer the question, why did I notice that thing in the artifact? So fight your urge, your natural urge, and do this assignment as quickly as possible so you can get the answer to that question. Why did I notice that thing? Okay. Typed outline must be turned in, and you're going to be required, since you're using a source on this one, to have a bibliography, a works cited at the end of it. You can use either APA or MLA. Well, you can use the others as well, but now you haven't even heard of them before. If those things don't mean anything to you, if I said you can use APA or MLA and it meant nothing to you, that means you're not using the style book yet. I would like to recommend that you use MLA. The reason for that is that's what the English department at East Los Angeles College uses. And so you might as well start learning MLA, since you're going to be required to use it in your English classes anyway. Or if you're already using it in your English classes, you've already got an exposure to it. Later on, you won't get a choice. You'll have to use whatever your professor uses. So if you're not already using a word, APA or MLA, use MLA. The only thing you're concerned with in MLA for this class is how to write the bibliography, how to write the works cited, works consulted lists, okay? Don't worry about anything else in that book about writing except this. You're not writing papers, we're writing outlines. And you're not writing an MLA outline from the beginning. I'm going to teach you very simple ways to get into how to do the outline. The outline is going to start really simple. We'll talk about that in just a second, and it's going to grow. That make sense? So you must include the bibliography. That is a minimum requirement of the assignment. The other page that I have there for you is a couple of quick self-introduction outlines there, just to see what the outlines look like. A full sentence outline, and this is something you might have to take some notes on because it's not anywhere else easily accessible to you unless you do Google searching for it. A full sentence outline uses content-specific topic sentences. If you look at the document, it'll say, you know, Roman numeral number one full content-specific topic sentence, okay? Have you used the concept of topic sentences before? I'm only seeing a couple of people go shaking heads. Okay. When you're writing a paper, every paragraph has a topic sentence. The document itself has a topic sentence as well. You normally call that a thesis statement, but it also has a topic sentence. But each paragraph has a topic sentence. There's one sentence in that paragraph that is the central concept that paragraph is about. The rest of the sentences in that paragraph are either explanations or support for that topic sentence. Sometimes the topic sentence is actually in the paragraph, sometimes it's an implied topic sentence. When you're doing English analysis, one of the things when you're being tested for English analysis, that kind of thing, one of the things they're looking for is, can you identify the central concept of this paragraph? Can you identify the central concept of this paper? That's what we're talking about here. In writing, every paragraph has a topic sentence. In public speaking, you have one topic sentence for every 25 to 30 seconds worth of speaking time. So in writing, you have a topic sentence and you have a paragraph. In speaking, you have a topic sentence and 25 or 30 seconds worth of talking. That 25 or 30 seconds is, just like the paragraph, either explanation of or support for that topic sentence. This is something you're going to have to be working with if they're not doing it for you, or if it hasn't been fresh for you in your English classes yet. This is a concept of critical thinking that you may not have been taught in K-12. And if you haven't gotten very far in English, or if you had a bad English teacher, you may have missed it already, okay? But this concept, this critical thinking concept of topic sentences, is going to become very important for you, because that's what we're talking about in the outline here. These are topic sentence outlines, full sentence outlines, or preparation outlines, which is different labels all for the same thing. So since this is a 2-minute speech,
and each topic sentence is good for about 25 to 30 seconds of speaking time, you're going to be limited to about 4 to 5 sentences in the outline, aren't you? Okay. This is not a paper. It's an outline. So there's really only a couple of ways you can put this together here. The first one up there is you can have one full content-specific topic sentence for 4 Roman numerals, Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, and 4. Or you might have Roman numeral 1 and 2 with A and B under each one of those. In outlining, you never have only one at any level of subordination. If you have a Roman numeral number 1, you must have at least a Roman numeral number 2 in that same outline. You might also have a 3 or a 4 or a 5, but you have to have at least Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2. If you go sub to that and have capital A, if you have a capital A, you must also have at least a capital B. You might have a C and a D, but you have to have at least A and B. You have at least 2 at any level of subordination. We never have just one. Excuse me. That forces you to have an organization. It forces you to support or explain your ideas. This is going to be something most of you are learning looking at the faces that I have in front of me. Okay. So there's a couple of different ways you can have here, and then the works cited at the bottom of that. If you've done any work in English or written papers for other things, remember this is not a paper. This is an outline. All of your English teachers, all of your other papers say start your references on a new page, right? You start your reference list, your bibliography on a new page. This is not a paper. This whole outline is going to be 6 or 7 lines long. I don't need 2 pages for it. You don't need 2 pages for it, okay? Just put it at the bottom. I'm cool with it, all right? As we go through here. So make sure that your outline fits the requirements of the assignment sheet and looks like one of the 2 outline examples that you have in front of you there, okay? Once again, you can't do anything with this until you find the article, until you have our reticular activator fire. You go, what? And you ask yourself, why did I answer that? Why did I notice that? When you get that answer done, then you can finally start talking about or thinking about what are the main points of my 2 minutes going to be? What are the main sections that I'm going to have? What am I going to talk about in each paragraph in this 2 minutes, okay? That's where you have to get to it. Rough drafts I will entertain at virtually any time. Now remember that, I have to get to the computer. I check my email at least twice a day. If you haven't heard from me in 24 hours, something weird happened, okay? I'm not going to ignore you. I don't want you sitting home going, oh, Dave doesn't like me. He won't look at mine, okay? If I haven't responded to you in 24 hours, something happened. It got lost. It got filtered out. It may have filtered out on my end. Understand, I accept attachments from students to my home computer. I have 4 levels of firewall to get through to get to my computer, okay? So sometimes because of a word or a phrase in your document, it got filtered out before it got to me. So a lot of times it's something on my end that got lost, okay? So if you haven't heard from me, send it again. Send me an email, did you get it? I'll say no, okay? So we can get to it. Don't wait around multiple days and waste time. I will get back with you, at least in 24 hours. Any other questions about the assignment? I'm changing the due date to Tuesday rather than Wednesday so that I can get them at least acknowledged for you before. When you send me your finished draft, the one for grading, no later than Tuesday, you will get an email back from me at minimum saying, I got it. If you don't get an email back from me saying, I got it, I didn't got it. Okay. Once again, look for those responses so that you'll know
So we don't end up going on Wednesday, Thursday, Dave, did you get my outline? No, I didn't get your outline. Well, now it's late. Well, but I sent it, I swear. I don't want to call you a liar, but I also can't accept it, right? So we'll work through it that way. Anything else about the assignment coming up? On the home page or in the files, you will find something that says fear of public speaking link or fear of public speaking video link. I forget what I called it. Anyway, it'll say something about fear of public speaking and a link. In that notice, or rather in that document, I have posted a link to my TED Talk that will go back to the concept we first talked about at the beginning of class here about the fear of public speaking. You should have read in the textbook now what it covers. Part of what I want you to understand is where it came from. So the TED Talk is about that. What is the source of this communication apprehension, the source of fear of public speaking? So you can start to understand. Most people think that it's just them. They think they are just a little shy. They think they just have problems with it because we never talk about that stuff with other people. But understand this concept that we're starting to deal with is ubiquitous. Okay, everybody has it. Every one of your friends has it. Everybody you've ever seen on TV has it. Everybody in every movie or TV show you've ever seen has it. Okay, every politician has it. I have it. All of us have communication apprehension. And I want you to understand what it is and how it works so that you can start going, is that all it is? And then we'll start talking about things through the class to help you deal with it as well, okay? Couple of warnings about the video that you're going to go. I was the first one up that night and they had big problems with the sound system. There was popping and buzzing and all kinds of weird stuff happening while I was doing the speech, which meant I was getting angrier and angrier because I knew that we couldn't start again because we had an actual contiguous live audience that was drinking wine. So we couldn't start again. So you're going to find in there a lot of dropouts of the audio, quick little dropouts. That is not them editing out my cuss words. As somebody in a comment with that, boy, he cusses a lot. That's where they edited out pops and buzzes from their sound system, okay? It's not so bad that it's going to detract from you, but your mind might go, what, again, what? It was just the sound system being messed up as we go through there. Second reminder, if you find my huge mistake, and it is huge, and you send me an email about it before like noon, I'll give you a couple of extra points on this assignment. It's only worth 50 points, so it's not like you're going to get, oh my God, I can blow off assignment. It's not that kind of extra credit, okay? It'll just help your grade on this one. Anything else I can help you with en masse?
Professor, sorry, how do we find that video again?
Why, sorry. There's a document on the, sorry.
Why, sorry?
One of the things that does at the beginning, it's a way to give your power away. In communication, it's the way you give your power away. You say, you're smarter than me. If you start off with, and I'll make it very blunt, it's something, the subtext is, I'm not sure what I'm talking about, so I need you to explain it, okay? That's what sorry at the beginning of that is actually saying. Cut that crap out of your communication with your professors, okay? If you have a professor that their ego is so big that they need you to apologize before you ask the question, get the fuck out of that classroom, okay? that person's ego is so far, and we're all crazy, okay? We are all megalomaniacs because you make us that way, okay? Understand why your professors are crazy. For 25 years, every time I open my mouth and start talking, people start taking fucking notes to make sure they can remember what I said. Do you know what that does to your head after a while? Everything I say is important. And the only reason it's important is because I'm so important. And before you know it, we're just freaking megalomaniacs. Sorry. You got to deal with that. So just cut that stuff out of your communication, okay? Don't start off with, I don't know, but maybe I don't understand, but I'm so sorry. But just ask your freaking question. That's what we're here for. Cool? Okay. And I don't remember what your question was now.
Where can I find the video?
On the homepage where there are some modules, there's a module on there called the self-introduction. There's a module on there called, somebody just put it up in the chat up there for you.
You?
Somebody did. I don't know who was it. Juan did. Everybody say thanks, Juan. Just click on that. It'll take you to YouTube. It'll take you to my TED Talk and have some fun with it. Understand the other thing about that TED Talk, that's a 45-minute lecture crammed into only 15 minutes. So some of the really juicy background and quite a few of the jokes had to be cut out of it. Come back sometime when we're doing in-person classes and listen to my communication apprehension talk. But here you're getting 15 minutes of it anyway, okay? Anything else?
Mr. Didn't you say that you were going to tell us why you and your wife live like 15 minutes away or 15 miles or something like that?
I'll do that for you. Those who don't care about me and my domestic situations, you're welcome to leave the class now. But sure, absolutely. Like I said, I hide almost nothing from you. I was a horrible child who had a significant drug and alcohol problem for most of my young life. I'm very proud of who I am today. I hide nothing from you, okay? So my wife and I, this is my second wife. Well, part of the story will come out. My first wife was who I was married to when I went into college. And I went into college because in construction, I tore all the ligaments out of an ankle from jogging. I was running, I had an accident, I tore all the ligaments out of an ankle. I could no longer do construction. Otherwise, I would have been in construction for a few more years. I wouldn't be a college professor today. So I had to go back in and get some testing and become go back to school to become a professor. I didn't actually come back to school to professor. I came back to school to be a rehabilitation counselor, because my rehabilitation counselor thought I was so good at it, he wanted me to be a rehabilitation counselor. And then I took this frickin' class, public speaking, in my first summer session at Mount San Antonio College, another community college in Southern California here. And in that very first class, I decided I was going to be a speech teacher. So all that preparation coming up to it, I went into my first class and went, fuck it, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And have never looked back, okay? So I was married to my first wife when I started college. And while I was in college, of course, I grew different ways and she grew different ways. And ultimately she admitted something, or she was able to admit something that she had fought for most of her life. My first wife is an incest survivor. She was abused by her father from her earliest memories up until she was about 14 years old, when she finally was able to fight back to him on that. And she kept that hidden until her father was killed in an industrial accident on the job. Now, a couple of years before that, my mother was killed. Wow, this will fuck up your brain. A couple of years before that, my mother was killed by a stray bullet from a gang shooting. So when her father died and was going through that, I went to her, oh, I understand. I know what it's like to lose a parent. And my wife looked at me and went, no, you don't fucking understand. That bastard burned just like he should have. And I went, what the fuck? And we got her into counseling, and she's doing wonderfully. We're great friends. We kiss each other when we see each other. We're friends on Facebook. We share lots of stuff. My first wife and I are still very, very friendly.
but that led to a breakdown of the marriage as she grew and I grew in college. So my second wife I met in college, and be very careful about the people in your classes, because I met her in an interpersonal communication class on college. Anyway, we fell in love and moved in together, but neither one of us was ready to get married. And through the years, we lived together about 7 years, 8 years, and I started asking her to marry me after about 3 years, and she kept saying no. And when I thought she was conducive, I'd ask her again. And finally, I looked at her and said, okay, as far as I'm concerned, we're married. We've been living together for 7 years. I don't date anybody. You don't date anybody. Okay, the only thing missing is a piece of paper. I'm never going to ask you again. Okay? And she went, okay, cool. And a year and a half later, she got really drunk one night and went, I want to get married, Dave. Okay, cool. I'm up. I'm for it. I've been wanting this a long time. So we got married. And I was still in college. She had left with her bachelor's and was working in the world. She came back and got a master's later. But it was love. It was wonderful. So beautiful until about 2.5 years later. And it just kept escalating, you know, until finally, fine, get out of here. I like you, you know, divorce. So we divorced. 6 months later, I miss you. I miss you too. You want to go out on a date? Yeah, let's go have coffee. Oh, you know, it's so cool. We'll get married again. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get married again. We got it figured out now, right? Sure. Get out of here. 6 months later, I miss you. I miss you too. So we've been divorced twice and married 3 times. And after we got married the 3rd time, we finally figured out we love each other dearly, but we can't fucking live together. When we're in the same building all the time, we get on each other's nerves and it just grows. And I have a master's in communication. She has a bachelor's in communication. And we still couldn't figure it out, okay? So we got married, but decided we're not going to live together. So she has a house in Upland. I have a house in La Puente. And we see each other on the weekends. Well, we haven't done much during the lockdown here. But she is a high school teacher in West Covina. So she comes out here during the week and we meet for dinner and just to talk. And on the weekends, I go out to her place and stay there because I have a bedroom there and she has a bedroom here. And we're happy as can be. We text each other, good morning, good night. Everything is beautiful, but we don't live together because we can't. If your relationship does not look like other people's, don't fight trying to make it look like other people's. Find the one that works for you. My wife and I live 16 miles apart and we are ecstatic with that setup. Yours might be different, okay?
Yeah, it's like all about a compromise, I guess. It's different.
This was the compromise we did to make it work for us. And talk. Oh my God, talk. You just learned that somebody with a master's and another with a bachelor's still had trouble doing all that crap. Because we both thought.
Professor,
yes.
Professor, this is Jesus. I met my wife also at college.
That's why I said, well, let me warn you.
Cal LA.
You know, in this here in America, we have a saying that says absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's not true. The research says very clearly, the more often you are exposed to somebody, the more attractive they become to you. So be very careful who you hang out with, because the longer you hang out with them, the more attractive they're going to become. The more you hang, or the more you stay apart, the more likely is that you'll separate as things go.
Professor, I met my wife at Cal State LA swimming pool. We shared a lane, a swimming lane. So there was some good chemistry there.
My wife and I said we were in interpersonal communication class, and
we were doing an exercise in the class. You know, we were all sitting in rows, and we were doing a section on nonverbal communication. So the assignment or the exercise was everybody stand up and turn. You know, the rows just turn to face somebody next to you. Okay, now start stepping slowly towards each other. That's the assignment. And non-verbally, let the other person know when they're getting too close. When you start to become uncomfortable with how close they're getting towards you, you need to non-verbally let them know, however you want to, okay? So Victoria and I, we knew each other, but you know, just as classmates, we turned towards each other and we started moving and moving and moving and moving until we were touching bellies. This far apart, our faces, touching bellies, going, who the fuck are you? And I was in a relationship and she was in a relationship, and both of those relationships broke down because of that exercise in an interpersonal communication class. So be careful who you hang out with. Be careful who you have in your study groups. So that's why. Anything else? Any questions I can answer you about me if that comes up? Like I said, I won't hide anything from you. And I can pay. What's that?
Professor, I as an undergraduate, I studied philosophy, and I searched structural psychology, and it from what I read, it's once psychology broke off from philosophy, because I think what I remember from philosophy was that the way philosophy understood psychology was kind of your soul. The way they kind of saw it that way, but I'm not sure why why it broke off, but it broke off, and that was the first school actually was structuralism. So can you explain a little bit what is structural psychology?
Yeah, in philosophy, you talk about the soul, it's magic.
Yes.
Structuralism says there are things that make it happen that way. It's not magic. There are rules, there is structure in our communication, in our thought processes. There are things that happen the same way in almost everybody. And it goes even farther now that we've gotten into the true biology of it, in that the brain has actual physical structures in there that make us who we are. That you've probably been exposed to, if not personally, at least maybe in a larger vein, somebody who's had a brain injury of some kind, had a stroke or a physical injury to the brain, and their personality changes. That if we make a change in the brain itself, that the soul is altered. And we also know that the opposite is true, that if you make a significant change in the thought process, the brain rebuilds itself physically in order to support that new thought process.
And I think that's referred to epigenetics.
Yep.
The decisions we make give a different path for protein synthesis, and that would actually change your brain, would change your body too.
Yep, absolutely.
You're adding protein to.
It's one of the reasons why. It's one of the reasons why habits are so hard to break and so hard to construct, because you have to keep doing the thing that you want to do for at least 3 months before your brain starts to reconstruct itself effectively. That if you stop doing that thing because it's such a pain in the ass before about 3 months, your brain hasn't changed yet. And so your thought process goes right back to where you were before. And you have still the same habit, the same things. You have to force yourself to get past it long enough for the brain to rebuild itself. Once the brain rebuilds itself, then you have the new thought process. And the only way you can change that is through some other thing happening.
Wow, cool. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, Professor, can we see your snakes?
Well, I don't know. This will get really shaky, okay? Because I have to pull this camera up and we'll see what happens. Oh, it's way too bright. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. No, it won't stay. Well, screw it, I broke it. Anyway, I'll fix this once I'm getting. I'll take a video of it and post it somewhere. I'll either send a link to it for YouTube, or I'll post it somewhere in the Canvas so you can see the snakes. There are a couple of corn snakes. They're, oh my God, 15 years old now. They're old folk. Couple of old men living together. Oh wow, I look bald from that direction. That's cool. I'm very proud of my hair. Thank you very much. When I was a teenager, I didn't like it so much because I grew up in the 60s, and in the 60s, facial hair was important, and I couldn't grow any. Nothing. When I was 21, I finally started to be able to grow a little teeny mustache. So that's why I have a beard, because I never learned how to shave. It's such a pain in the ass to shave. It's much easier to just let that crap grow. As we get through. My hand's shaking. That happens when you're old as well. That's at least you can look up my nose that way, but at least you don't have to watch my hand shaking like an old man. So you take Scandinavian and Native American blood and mix it together, and you just don't get much in the way of body hair. It just doesn't. My wife used to get so pissed at me because my legs are completely smooth. There's no hint of hair on my legs. I've got like 3 little weird, strange things on my chest, and the rest of it's gone. And during the 60s, that was bad because I couldn't grow mutton chops or a beard or nothing. Now I love it because I have a complete head of long hair without a bald spot, and I'm 66. So it's pretty cool now, but when I was young, it sucked. So I'll post a video of them so you can see who they are. It's the chromatic one is Valentino, and the albino, the orange one, is Timmy. I have no idea why. They were named when I got them. They don't answer their name, they're snakes. They don't even care. All they care about is, do I put a mouse in there? Anything else?
Yeah, so for the reading, you said that we have to read whatever, like, the week, well, basically the week on Canvas will say the chapter, and we have to read that, right?
No. You have to be through chapter 10.
Because,
you have to be through chapter 10 by the midterm. I won't give you reading assignments. Okay. Yeah, I won't give you reading assignments. I want you to study everything in the text.
And then the assignment.
The only assignment you have is to read wherever you are and to put the self-introduction speech together.
Right. And that's due on Tuesday, right?
Yeah. Hopefully rough draft before that, but anything else?
Do we turn in the rough draft, not the rough draft, the outline, do we turn it in to Canvas, or do we email you?
You'll be sending them to me at my Verizon address, the one that's in the syllabus.
Copy.
Either send me as an attachment or send me a link to a Google Doc or some other online doc. Just as a reminder, some of you may have missed it earlier. If you send me a link to a doc, make sure that I can edit it. Either invite me to edit or make sure that the document itself is editable. If you're going to send me an attachment to my private email address, make sure it is a document, DOC or DOCX. I cannot do pages and I can't edit PDFs very well. So make sure they're saved in a doc or document format.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anything else? If you come up with any other questions, certainly you can send them to me. You can save them till next week. If it's something that's important for other people to know, I will make a notice about it. Like if I messed up the date or something like that, I'll send a notification out about it. But as far as I'm concerned, you have your assignments. That is, make sure you're already reading and keep up with the reading. Get your self-introduction speech put together as quickly as possible so you can send rough drafts to me so you can make it better. And click on the link and head over there and listen to my TED Talk and watch me get angry, hopefully without showing much of it. I was pretty good about not showing it. As far as I'm concerned, that's it. I love you all. Thank you for showing up on time. I'm sorry some of you hung around for a while because I didn't know about the second page over there while I was sitting going, well, there's 20 people here, and there were 20 people on page 2 waiting already. So we'll get a little more smooth as we move through the semester. Next week on Wednesday, once again, I'll open the meeting at about 7, and by 7:05, I will be started. So be there or be square. That doesn't even mean anything anymore, does it? All right, thanks a lot. Love you.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye.
Thank you, Professor.